Hello everyone, this is Cole, the ColeTrainn. This is going to be a little bit of a different video. So I know a lot of you watch the raw content of the TFT videos that I just have usually from my stream. It's going to be different. This is actually a pre-recorded video. If you want to see when I stream, feel free to, in the description, you should be able to find my link and or just on my YouTube channel to my Twitch. I usually stream as much as I can, almost daily, when and if I can. Now, as this will be a different kind of video today, with it being a tips and tricks, as you may have seen already from the title, I want to emphasize before going into the points a few things. First off, for the music, if you like the music that I'm listening to while going over this tips and tricks, it is no copyright sounds. Shout out to them for letting me use their content as it's copyright free. Another thing to note as well is that most of the points that I'll be mentioning, they are not 100% the case all the time, just generalized rules, tips, and tricks to follow. So don't take everything that I mention here 100% you must follow this is the law. The scenarios may change on the game per game basis. Now going straight to the slides here. First off, some things that I'll be going over here. This is some important info to convert from set 10 habits to set 11, because a lot of people that have played set 10 have formed very different habits in the game, and you'll find very quickly that this new set isn't as complex as it seems, but set 10 actually is not healthy for future sets. There's also going to be some tips to view the game different, because as mentioned previously, maybe this set is not as complex as it seems. Maybe there's some things that we can use to view it very differently for a better perspective. As well as at the very end of this video, if you guys watch till the end, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of a cheese tactic you can use to increase your chances of winning and or placing higher. It is a very niche thing, but it will be very helpful with the information. Okay, first off, a little bit of credentials about myself, because probably saying, Cole, you're just some random, I don't know if I can trust you. Well, a few things to note. Let's move this over here. So, first off, I've hit plat from set 6 to 8. This is when I seriously tried. Sets 5 and 4, I did not play ranked. I just played normals to fully understand every single small mechanic like econ, as well as knowing leveling intervals, etc. But when I did try hard, I hit diamond in sets 9 to 10. So you'll see near the bottom here, I hit plat 4 in other sets. So you had to move the train here. And I hit diamond 4 in set 9, diamond 3, 9.5. And this set, I mean, jumping in between plat or diamond 3 and diamond 4, but fortunately the end of the set is sort of well solved and harder to top for it. I've also played with and been coached by a few master / grandmaster players. For previous sets, when I was in Platinum, I was trained by a buddy of mine named Adam, who was a Masters like 100, 200 LP. I will not be giving his usernames to keep his full identity private, but he played for a while and then unfortunately had to do other life things. And for the other sets, say more recent sets, I've been coached as well as mentored a little bit by my friend Michael, who you may have seen in some videos. He's actually like top 500 in TFT right now, so really chill guy and has really good insight, which actually helped me climb out of some very rough situations in set 10 with just general tips. So for example, like make sure you don't fall for the 4-2 level to 8, roll down all your gold, don't hit headliner, then you're fucked kind of thing. Gave me different perspectives so that you can actually stabilize a lot better, that kind of thing. I've also been in challenger lobbies and actually held my own a little bit. So for example, I have played with BoxBox and Raditz. I played with them about 2 or 3 times during the PvE testing. And I've actually gone like 4th and 2nd with them, with only losing to Raditz in one of them, and basically outbeating BoxBox and Raditz in one of them, but losing to one of the randoms. So I've actually held my own. I have played approximately 80 games in PvE, and I've spent about 1 to 2 hours each day studying for the new set, because this is the set I'm going to try and climb to lot masters and or higher. So I've been looking at a lot of guides online, as well as watching tons of different people's streams to see how they play the game differently. So seeing like how BoxBox plays it for his pacing, if you want to do a little bit more of like a higher to medium paced tempo, watching Raditz as well to see like his extreme hyper tempo, and sometimes he actually plays it really slow too and lose streaks really hard, but shows like how to come out of that deficit. As well as Frodan, who is literally like used to commentate a whole bunch of events before, partook in some of them too, but biggest thing for Frodan, he's watched a lot of international events. So with this information, like, he has tons of different like ways to look at the meta, because let's be real, like 90% of us only watch NA and we only see how North American people play in tempo, but like China, Korea, South America, they all have different ways of playing the game, which actually is most times a lot better. And as you can see, I'm also currently in the top 2.95% of players in North America, which is like roughly like top 15,000. If it was like very, very early on to the set when I hit Diamond, I would say, well, sorry, Emerald, because it took me a little bit to get Diamond, but I was in the top like 9,000 at one point. All right, so first off, health is going to be way more important in this set than the past sets. This set is very high tempo. So what I mean by this, going fast 7 to roll to stabilize, or fast 9 once you have a stable board to that point, and then to 10, is like the S tier move you can do as of this moment in PvE. Will this be the same upon release? Probably, let's be real. Like, there's gonna be very minor tweaks, but after the first major patch, these points may change. There is no headliners this time to bail you out. So for example, you can't play 2-star Seraphine hoping for going to 8 and then getting your tier 2 Ahri headliner, right? As well as the fact that there's no units to give you 2 of the same synergy. So it's not like you're gonna be like, oh, I have KDA 3, but then I had this KDA Seraphine I held on to for KDA 5, so now I have to hit Ahri, right? It makes you so narrow-minded at that point. This set can be more flexible, but at the same time, you must understand that there's going to be way less times to bail you out when you lose streak. And for example, on the pass point, you'll see in the brackets on the second point, you want to maintain over 30 gold so you don't fall too far behind, because leveling is still very important tempo-wise. But you also still want to spend gold when possible. So it's not going to be like in set 10 where you just held all your gold, barely rolled so you can focus on hitting level 8 at 4-2 with 30-ish gold and then rolling down for your headliner and then stabilizing after that. It's a lot better to just have a good board that'll get you through the mid game. Early game is, there's different ways to play the early game, but mid game you have to get back on tempo. If you don't do well early, you must catch up. Otherwise, bottom 4 is very easy to get. If you're gonna lose streak, use it to gain an edge over the rollers. So for example, take Hedge Fund, collect as much gold as you can, so by the time they are level 6 or level 7 with, they roll down their gold, let's say somewhere between 10 to 30 gold, right? You are now level 8 with 50 gold, getting to the 4 costs first, and that way you can get like your Kaisa 2 for your Ink Shadows, or you can get your, let's just say like your Galio for your Story Weaver, so you can get your vertical a little bit better, or even like using this to go 9 while everyone else is 8, so that you can get as much of the 5 costs as possible, and even getting like Quay online as quick as possible so that you can duplicate people for you. On top of this, also, if you're gonna lose early, try to get best cash out you can, because this will help you catch up as well as using Fortune. Or I gotta move myself again so you can see this point, but also Vampirism. So you can use this to get combat power later, and you'll find that a lot of the combat augments are going to be picked by most players like 70 to 80% of the time. So you'll need to, if you don't choose a combat augment, you need to find a way to make yourself equal to them, whether it be now or later on. Understand the power of the units. This is a big one, because again, in set 10, there was so many ways that like you could basically, the mechanic for set 10 was with the headliners, right? But like it can make it so that any headliner could get you out of the hole, right? But not this case. Not every unit is made equal. You can't just headline some units. So for example, you can't start the game being like, oh, I'm going to play for Irelia in the Storyweaver comp, right? There's ways you gotta find your strength earlier to get to that point. Or for example, let's just say you're going Fated, right? Don't bank on hitting a spat so that you can hit your Fated 7 quicker. You will need to find a way to stabilize early mid game to get you to the point of going that 7 trait, right? So for example, let's just compare it to set 10. Set 10 Bart was a B tier carry. Like, you could carry with him in the Jazz board KDA where he had like 7 to 9 synergies, but if you didn't hit the headliner, you were more than likely wanting to just carry Misfortune or Kaisa instead, where they didn't rely on the headliner. But then if you did get the headliner early so you could stack him and he forms more Dutes, it made him more like in between like an S to A plus tier unit, right? This set, there are some units that are better suited to be secondary carry slash item holders over primary carry. This is not always the case, but a general rule. So for example, for Kindred, you can carry Azir items, right? Kindred will do very well with most Azir items. So we're talking like Shojin or Gwinsus or Archangels or Gunblade. All these items are really good, right? Kindred is not going to be the person that wins you first place late game in stages 6+, right? She's going to fall off a cliff eventually, where, let's just say, the enemy team's Irelia just one-shots your Kindred, and you're like, oh, okay, right? Or Udyr just dashes in your backline and kills your, like, 3-star Caitlyn, right? Like, there's going to be a point where some of these units just, you will need to find a way to get a better carry, so you throw your items on those units to carry for later. So speaking about the Caitlyn point, like, Caitlyn can be a really good item holder for Kaisa, for example. You can play Ghostly early so you can get your Ink Shadow Kaisa on Lion, right? Or, like, you could have Kog'Maw hold your items, and then you can actually move those items to Lilia later if you don't hit the 3-star, right? There are some units that can supersede this rule, like Kog'Maw 3 is very strong, but at the same point, there's also, you gotta understand that line of, can this person carry later, or is this person only holding my items? Another big example for this, right? So if you look at most of the 4 costs in the game, a lot of the 4 costs are very good, and some of them are very secondary, right? So if you look at Morgana, right? Which one do you think will be stronger? A level 2 Morgana or a level 2 Lilia? Most times your general answer, unless you've itemized a very specific way, is most times going to be Lilia, right? Like, Lilia uses Morello, Morgana uses Morello, Lilia uses blue buff, Morgana can't use blue buff, right? Morgana's more of a utility secondary carry where you're going to put your anti-heal, whereas Lilia, you want a lot of your item damage right there, right? Again, not always the case, but just as a general rule, you're going to need to figure out the strength and power of the units before you dedicate hard to them. Now, obviously, Morgana 3 can be very strong, don't get me wrong, but again, like, Morgana has a utility kit. It's gonna be like, you wouldn't put like full AP items in Galio, right? Like, self-explanatory, there are gonna be some units that can be stronger than Galio. Not always the case, right? Galio is a very strong bruiser, but if he's holding your items temporarily for your Udyr is gonna be a lot better with them, right? The set has a lot of things in common with older sets. So for veteran level players, this set is actually gonna be not as spooky as other sets. It'll be a lot easier to adjust this set. If you are a newer player, I would probably recommend to read each unit and how they work, to go to TF Tactics or watch some videos about whether it be the set or how some of the other units from past sets or synergies relate to this. This will be very good for if you're wanting to seriously try hard and try to climb. If you are just playing for the fun of it, you can definitely ignore those first 2 points up there and just play it the way that you want to play it. So here's one example of how you can actually relate this set with older sets. Heartsteel cash outs are actually very similar to Fortune's, not exactly 1-to-1, but gold value wise. So for example, for Heartsteel cash out, right, if with a 50 gold equivalent cash out, you're gonna get a very, very similar one for Fortune. Here's a big example of one. So Heartsteel cash out when you had 750 stars, right? There's a very high chance of you getting a triple locket training dummy, right? And at the equivalent of that, because that was about like a 50 gold cash out, at the 50 gold cash out for Fortune, I believe that's also one of the options you can get. So it's not like you have to read that whole Fortune tree top to bottom unless you seriously want to try hard and know all the statistics. Generally, you can use the Heartsteel cash outs that you may have played a lot and remembered to sort of let you know, like Fortune wise, this is what I should be expecting to cash out with. And of course, you can just hover over the Fortune trait in the game based on your amount of luck you have and see what your gold equivalent will be, right? The playstyle of Fortune is also very similar to Set 9's Piltover, minus the fact that you don't get a big-ass T-Hex shooting lasers over everybody. Because that was very fair. But very similar because as you lose more, you lose / gain more stacks multiplicatively. So it wasn't like you lose 10 rounds, you get 10 stacks. It would go from like 1 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 to 7 to 9 to 10, so on and so forth, etc, etc, etc. And similar for your luck, right? Now, a little bit different, of course, Piltover to Fortune, right? Because, for example, at the bottom here, if you are winning early with your econ trait, right? You get a worse cash out and you want to lose as much as you can while preserving HP, right? So let's just say you were doing Set 9 Piltover, right? You lost 4 or 5 times, right? Your T-Hex now has 14 stacks, and to get that big laser ability that basically decimates the whole board, you need another 16 stacks, right? So your T-Hex was now a body bag, nothing more, right? So at that point you were like, well shoot, I can't lose as much now. I probably lost, like, I don't know, let's just say you lose the next 4 rounds afterwards, you only gain an extra 8 stacks, right? Your T-Hex is at like 20 stacks compared to like the 50 it would have been at, right? So you want to lose as much as you can, but you also still want to preserve HP. So a good way of doing this that everyone did in Piltover was using the bottom right of the board and putting your tanky unit in the corner while the carries outside of it, so in that way you still could kill a couple units without accidentally winning because your tank just took up all the damage, right? You can do a similar thing for Fortune here. And then almost same scaling for losses with Fortune and Piltover cash out that, as mentioned, went over before. Some units are reprints, so they're itemizations from past sets. So for example, Caitlyn. Caitlyn from this set is the exact same printout, not synergies wise, but the ability wise, where she just takes the ultimate from League of Legends, where she takes her sniper, aims it at the furthest target, and fires, doing like, it's like 700% of her base AD, right? Of course, this can be improved on now comparatively to set 6, because set 6, a lot of the support items were craftable items, right? So like you took like cloak and a belt, and you can make Zephyr before. Well, now it's gonna be an even shot, right? But this can actually make it a little bit better to improve on those previous builds. So for example, Guard Breaker is actually a pretty decent item on Caitlyn. She's always hitting the front line, getting that like 25 to 30% additional damage boost, right? So you can actually make it so you don't have to get these specific items for this. There is a lot more flexibility, but generally your itemization is the same. You want Chojin, i.e. +1, right? Some synergies are also very similar reprints as well. So it's not just units. So for example, if any of you played set 7 before, the Dragon Lord synergy, that's at the very right here, the one that says after 8 seconds of combat, the dragon strikes the board, dealing true damage to enemies and granting all allies attack speed for the rest of the combat, with the number 4 one stunning for 1.5 seconds, right? If you look at Tempest from set 7, after 8 seconds, lightning strikes the battlefield. Similar wording already. Same amount of seconds, right? Enemies are stunned for 1 second and take a percentage of their max health as true damage. Then Tempest champions deal increased damage. So the only difference between the two of them is basically that you have to hit Dragon Lord 4 to get the stun. right? Because Tempest had it no matter what, so Tempest is a lot more desirable for most comps. Because in Dragon Lord, there's some units that you don't want to splash in with other synergies, right? Can't think of a main one off the top of my head other than, like, if you're going bruisers, right? The 2 Dragon Lords you would put in don't synergize as well with the vertical bruiser, right? Like, it's still possible, but, like, Tempest 2 was something you could splash in super easily in set 7, right? And of course, the only other difference is Dragon Lord just gives your whole team the stats. Tempest only gave the Tempest units the stats, right? But again, as mentioned, very similar printheads, right? So if you played set 7, it might be a little bit easier to understand some of the synergies and potentially some of the units as well, right? Because there's only so much that TFT can... It's an awesome game, don't get me wrong. There's only so much that they can do before reprints have to be a thing, right? Similar to most sets, your synergy tree this time is going to be more important than your verticals. So for those of you who played set 10, you've been taught that Pentakill 10 is something you want to chase because that's just end game win condition, right? GG, you win. In other sets before that, it was more similar to like the Jazz trait. Like you sort of wanted to throw in more synergies because generally hitting the vertical was very hard to do and made specifically hard to do for that purpose, right? So it's better just to most times throw in as much synergy as possible. A disclaimer, this is not the case all the time. I would say approximately 90% of the time, right? So for example, if you look at the current synergy of Storyweaver, Storyweaver has so many splash synergies, and putting in all the Storyweavers isn't always better. So I've put the 3 most desirable Storyweavers for your end game comp on the screen. Riven has Altruist and Bruiser. Gallia has Bruiser, so you've already paired these 2 units together to make a really good front line with Gallia, right? And if you look at Zyra, you have Sage. Now, Rakan here is just an example of one of the 5 cost plugins, so you don't have to run the full 7 Storyweaver vertical because late game, let's be real, Sivir's probably not doing much for you unless you're pairing her with Kai'Sa, and let's be real, at that point, if you're carrying Kai'Sa, you'd much rather do Inkshadow, right? With Rakan, you put in Altruist, right? But now you can put a plug and play more units, right? So Zyra is Sage, and Sage is super easy to throw in late game, right? So you can throw in Lee Sin and Diana, and if you have Irelia, now that gives you Sage 3, Dragon Lord 2, Duelist 2 as well, right? Or you can also throw in Morgana and Kayn as well, as also very similar units you can throw in with your 3 Storyweaver endgame level 10 cap board. So you can throw in Ghostly in there too, and also Morgana is another Sage. So very, very good for your AP in the back line and Omnivamp in the front, right? You can also throw in Wukong as well for Sage. You can throw in Ornn and Udyr for your Behemoth buff, right? Or if you throw in Garen for some reason as one of your Storyweavers, sorry, you can put in Udyr for Behemoth, right? There's a lot of ways to mix these synergies together. So for another example of this is Mythic, right? Like Bard, unless you're specifically itemizing him, you're probably going to want to get rid of him late game. So if you got a spat for Mythic, you would much rather throw in another unit that can provide you more splashes, right? Like you could put Mythic on like Udyr, and then you can throw in some Ink Shadows very easily, right? You know, that kind of thing, for example, right? And another thing that's important, I touched on a little bit earlier, you need 3 Storyweaver spats to get max Storyweavers. So don't bank on hitting it. Like, let's be real, there's not gonna be a game where you're gonna hit 3 spats in a row unless it's loot subscription, or you start off with the spat, then it's still better to use that to try and get your vertical tree more than your vertical synergy, right? Go for the stronger in the moment play is so much stronger now than greeting for the tuber. So if you are trying to bank on hitting, let's just say you went level 10, 50 gold, right? Are you gonna spend it to hit 9 Azirs, or are you gonna spend it to get a 2-star Udyr, 2-star Set, 2-star Hui, right? Like, don't bank on hitting the big tuber play, because most times it's going to take your placement down by like 2 to 3 at least. So yeah, be very careful, because tempo, as mentioned previously, is going to be very important. Anyone still watching, I appreciate you watching this. And so I promised at the beginning I'd show you a little bit of a cheese tactic. It can save you some HP and potentially make you win depending on how close the lobby is. For a very niche situation, I should mention. Crab Rave. This is probably something that, let's be real here, most of us have died to the crab and or lost HP to the Mega Crab. But did you know there is a way to kill it in, depending on itemization, somewhere between 1 to 5 seconds? Yeah, you can make it so you don't have to suffer the rage of the crab and be very sad when the others killed the crab but you died and now you're 5th place, right? Simple answer, but of course you have to be at a very specific situation to make this happen. Lysandra. Lysandra is going to be the main way on how you can survive the crab rave. Because in the circle text here, if the target is the last enemy remaining, you will kill them instantly. On top of this, Lysandra prints a 50% chance to print a loot item when she kills someone, right? So there's no way the rest of your team is going to kill the crab, right? So Lysandra gives you loot, extra loot should be mentioned, and kills the crab instantly. And she starts at 40 mana, so even with her taking damage, there's going to be a very high chance she still casts, because the crab doesn't do as much damage early, right? But, so what I recommend, if you see Crab Rave is chosen, at some point before 5-7, you see Lysandra, pick her up, put her to the side. It'll be so much better to get your 2 to 3 full items plus gold than only getting 1 item and then losing to the crab, right? So this will help you out with spiking out a lot more late game. And also, Lysandra's just a very good unit. I probably recommend picking her up regardless. She's a very easy plug and play unit, not primarily because of her synergies, but because of the fact that Lysandra is actually a very big enabler to win streak. Especially for the fact that, as mentioned, you get her early, you put her in, even if the synergies don't match, then you just print some extra loot, because her base damage is 700% at level 1, right? That's it for me, though. Thank you for watching, everyone, and let me know if you want more tips and tricks / videos like this in the comments. If you want the raw footage, let me know. I'm actually planning on making some edited videos in the future for the TFT tubers. I'm currently learning how to edit, so you'll see some higher and better quality stuff in the future. If you wanted to catch up more on seeing me live, whether you want to say like, hey, I watched your video, it was pretty cool, feel free to check out twitch.tv/ColeTrainn41. Otherwise, you can leave a comment here. I will answer basically all comments, even if you're like, you suck, I'm like, thanks. And then yeah, other than that, I will be signing off. This is ColeTrainn and Choo Choo Motherfuckers.